anirodhamanutpadamanutchedamasashvatam anekarthamananarthamanagamanirgamam yah pratitya samutpadam prapanchopashamam shivam deshayamasa sambuddhastam vande vatatam varam nasvato napi parato nadvabhyam napyahetutah utpanna jatu vidyante bhavah vachanake chana kriya na pratyayavati na pratyayavati kriya pratyayana kriyavantascha santyuta sarvopalam vopashamah prapancho pashamah shivah na kvachit kaschit dharmo buddhena deshitah. So welcome back to our Dharmapada session after this wonderful retreat we had last week, where you were able to intensify to some extent the insights conveyed by the ancient Dharma. What is Dharma? The word Dharma comes from the root dri, which means to hold, to sustain, to carry. And it is very literally that which sustains, that which holds, that which carries. But what does it hold? What does it carry? What does it sustain? It sustains happiness, abhyudaya, and liberation or freedom, nishreyasa. This definition of Dharma is the same in all the different traditions and shows us that there is a unity of Dharma. Dharma is that which makes you happy if you adhere to it, if you implement it. It is also that which makes you free. Free from what? Free from the cycle of ups and downs, of pains and pleasures, of wants and not wants, or likes and dislikes, the cycle of achievement and loss, the cycle of good and bad, positive and negative, the endless ups and downs. Dharma makes us free from that. Today, we will complete the first chapter of the Buddha's Dharmapada. So that is wonderful. It means after 2,500 years of this beautiful master's existence, there are still people studying his teachings and putting them into practice. I shall first read the verses, and then the translation and explanation. Bahum piche samhitam bhasamano natakkaro hoti naro pamatto gopo vagavo ganayam paresam na bhagavasam manassa hoti appam pipe samhitam bhasamano dhammassa hoti anudhammachari ragam cha dosham cha pahaya moham samapajano suvimutta chitto anupadiyano idhavahuram va sabhagavasam manyassa hoti. When a person speaks a lot about teachings, but being unmindful does not practice them, he or she is like a cowherd counting others' cows. Such a person does not experience the treasure of equanimity. When a person speaks a lot about teachings, but being unmindful does not practice them, he or she is like a cowherd counting others' cows. Such a one does not experience the treasure of equanimity. But, this is the next verse, but when someone, although he or she has studied only a little of the teachings, sincerely adheres to Dharma, lays aside attachment, aversion, and confusion with the right understanding, with the mind properly released, no longer holding on to anything here in this world or there in the next world, such a one experiences the treasure of equanimity. And repeat the second verse one more time. But when someone, although he or she has studied only a little of the teachings, sincerely adheres to Dharma, lays aside attachment, aversion, and confusion with the right understanding, with the mind properly released, no longer holding on to anything here in this world or there in the next, such a one experiences the treasure of equanimity. There is a story recorded by Buddhaghoṣa, the great commentator who lived in Sri Lanka, I believe in the 4th century, 300 something, 350 or so, that once upon a time, the Buddha was residing at the Jetavana monastery. You see, at the time of the Buddha, there were no real monasteries. There were so-called viharas. These were garden-like parks in ancient India, which were beautiful for the eyes. And usually, this is interesting, these were usually maintained, or rather sponsored, by rich women. This is interesting for you as well, that the ladies in ancient India had more power in terms of what they did with their wealth than the men. The men were busy, doing the business, and the women would establish these mahaviharas, these beautiful parks, where monks and nuns could come and stay and could reside there for as long as they wished. This is sort of equivalent to the modern day Dharmashala. Those of you who have gone on pilgrimage in India, you will know the Dharmashalas. These are places where you can go. And although nowadays it is no longer free, unless it is like a really good one, it is no longer free. They charge you a little bit, but that's fine, because otherwise people leave it in a mess the next morning. So you have to then, of course, pay for the cleaning and all that. And in ancient times, this was outside, open door, open air. And it is said that these were beautiful parks with all the most, hibiscus flowers and the queen of the night and whatever you wish, was there. And there were deer and like in Richmond Park, I am told, I've never been there, but I am told that there are deer running around in Richmond Park in London. And so one of these was the Jetavana Vihara. And once the Buddha was residing there with his monks and nuns, And you see, the Buddha had a long life. About 45 years after his enlightenment, he was still teaching. So I think he turned around 82 or so. I'm not good at maths, but you can calculate yourself. And there were about 500 monks and nuns with him. And then at that time, already in northern India, he had his local groups. So there were people who were already teaching the Buddha's teachings locally. And he would travel around and people would come together in these viharas, in these parks. And some would be traveling with him and some would come with his local teachers. And one of these local teachers was a fully realized master already, what they call an arhat. I'd like you to learn some of this vocabulary. One of them had already attained the level of an arhat. That means he was already, enlightened in some sense, maybe not fully free of his karma, but he was on the level of enlightenment, or the first or second stage of enlightenment. And there was another one who was a great scholar, a great teacher of scriptures, a great master who already was writing down the Buddha's discourses, putting them together, which is very important. Otherwise, we wouldn't have these teachings. But he was sort of a scriptural scholar. And they came together, and out of his kindness, the Buddha invited both of these teachers, who were, of course, his students. He invited them to give a discourse in the presence of the 500 approximately monks and nuns. And the Buddha was quiet during the discourse. And after that, each discourse, he put questions to them. It's very interesting. So the Buddha wasn't just giving a monologue. He was actually having his students give discourses, and then he would put the questions. Quite an interesting way to teach. So he asked them about the deeper dhyanas, the deeper levels of meditation, and about what is called the marga phala, the fruit of the path. That when you practice all this, what is actually the fruit? What is the result? So he was asking both of them, and when he put the questions to the scholar couldn't really answer them. He couldn't answer from experience. He was able to put together a little bit what the Buddha said. Yes, then we are in equanimity. Equanimity means that we are equal in pleasure and pain, and in suffering and delight, and we experience a sense of serenity and all that. He was sort of giving a theoretical explanation, whereas the other one, he couldn't really give a long explanation, but it was clear to everybody that it was coming from experience. And then the Buddha praised the second one, the one who had practiced and who had experienced. And the first one clearly felt envious. There was a sense of, I've studied all this and I'm the one who's preserving it, and why is he praising the other one? So you could see that the first one was free from the kleshas. This is another word I would love you to learn. There are three primary kleshas. One is attachment. The other is aversion. Attachment means that we are emotionally onto hooking ourselves onto something. Aversion means we emotionally have a aversion or irritation to things. And the third is confusion, which has two aspects. The first is not seeing things as they are. So seeing things as they are not, sort of being confused about the nature of things. Bless you. And the inner aspect of confusion is aham graha or aham mati, always being obsessed with oneself. These are the two aspects of confusion. These three, my dears, can be directly seen in ourselves. It is not rocket science to observe them. There's a want, there is a dislike, there's another want, there is another dislike. We don't see things as they are. We don't see our self-obsession. Not so difficult, is it? Is it rocket science? Do you need to have a master's degree in rocket science or NASA? She says you have to be brave, or we have to be brave. We have to be courageous. And why? Why are we riding on this subject? Why are we going on and on and on about it? Because you see, these three dimensions, there are three basic dimensions of experience. If you're very truthful with yourself, you can see that your entire experience revolves around these three. These three cause dissatisfaction, dukkha. They cause discontentment when they are not contemplated, when they are not observed, when the mind does not gain clarity about them, when the mind is constantly pulled into them, another state of attachment, and then another state of aversion, another state of wanting, another state of not wanting, another state of not seeing things as they are, and another round of self-obsession. It is like a madhouse, a little bit. It is like, if you really are honest with yourself, tremendously honest, you will see that your mind is a little bit like a madhouse. In Hindi, we say pagal ghar. That your mind keeps revolving around these three fundamental dimensions. And sooner or later, that produces dissatisfaction. And because you do not realize it, you do not realize that these three are actually the cause of your dissatisfaction. Therefore, you keep revolving in them. Like this morning, Tripura Sundari was in a phase of desire when she was looking through a magazine what she could buy. That she showed me this some angel or something that for the living room, and then I told her, "Are you in acquisition mode to acquire something?" You know, because before Christmas there is a tendency, isn't there, that you want to acquire something. But see, this is innocent. There's no problem with it. It is innocent, but it really is a wave. It's a wave. The issue here, my dears, is not the wave arising. The wave of desire can arise. It is wonderful. The issue is the lack of awareness of it. You see, the lack of recognizing, oh, this is a wave of desire. And then when the aversion arises, the lack of recognizing the descent into aversion. It is really like a wave rising and a wave falling. And when your awareness, the Buddha calls this appamada, not being mindless or not being heedless, therefore awareness. When your mindfulness or awareness becomes more and more clear, clearer and clearer and clearer, and you become aware of the rising of desire and the descent into aversion. When you begin to experience these as waves arising in you and a wave ceasing in you, when this becomes more and more vivid, more and more clear, and when you don't ever descend into aversion mindlessly or just descended into it. Oh, I'm in aversion. Whoa. Or desire just, I want this. Like in 2007, when the new iPhone came, they must have done something absolutely brilliant. I experienced water in my mouth, really, when I saw these advertisements. And you see, I'm a poor person, so I couldn't afford it, obviously. So I experienced water in my mouth. How do you explain that? You know, this was the brand new iPhone. I think it was 2006 or 2007. The way they presented it. And then this was the mean thing. I was invited to Geneva. An Indian family had sponsored the installation of a big bust of Mahatma Gandhi at the United Nations in Geneva. And of course, the son of this Indian family had the new iPhone. What else, right? And then he was making photos of the statue, and I saw it. And it was like, it was water in my mouth. I don't know how you explain this. There's some, because you can't eat the iPhone, obviously. So, but that's a wave of desire, you see. And now the beauty, my dears, is this. You all think, or some of you think, that the teaching is to reject desire. No. The teaching is not to reject desire. The teaching is to be vividly aware of the rising of desire. And then also to be vividly aware of the descent into aversion. And when you become a master of this process, it is like riding the waves of your mind. The wave of desire, the descent into aversion or irritation. Can you understand this a little bit? Just a tiny little bit. Today, I want to introduce you to the first part of the Buddha's way of meditating, which is extremely skillful. There is something in your body that also keeps rising and falling, keeps rising and descending. That is your breathing, your ana and apana in Pali, anapana. In Sanskrit, this would be pranapana. Your exhalation and your inhalation, they keep rising and falling, and rising and falling, and rising and falling from the moment you are born till the moment you die. So the Buddha says that the very best technique, the very best way to recognize the rising and falling of your mind's waves is to first recognize the rising and falling of your breathing. And that in your breathing, all the waves of the mind are contained. That when you truly always come back to the rising and falling of your breathing, you will easily also come back to the rising and falling of your mind's waves. And that this brings you back to mindfulness, awareness, the freedom from heedlessness, Appamada, which is the title of chapter 2 of the Buddha's Dharmapada. When we practice Appamada, the freedom from heedlessness, we recognize that our mental waves, the coming of desire, the descent into aversion, the coming of a like, the descent into a dislike, have very micro forms. They are not just strong waves. They also come in tiny little waves. Tiny. Kshanabhanga in Sanskrit, tiny. And you can witness these in your body. We practice some of this in the retreat. In your emotional states, in your mental states, in the way your senses experience the world. But you need to pay attention. And you need to sustain that attention. And the Buddha's promise is, if you practice Appamada every day of your life, you will do well in death. And slowly, slowly, my dears, as we go through this text, I want to introduce you very specifically to his way of practicing mindfulness. Because you see, there are many different traditions that have emerged over the centuries, but it is very precious to learn this specific one, to know this specific one, because it connects to something so vast, to something so golden. This is my word for it. The Buddha's mindfulness, the Buddha's vipassana is golden. There is something shining about it. There is something beautiful. It is like a treasure. And the person I learned it from was Ajahn Tong Sri Mangala of northern Thailand, who last year passed away at the age of 96. I want to show you a picture of him. First, I'm not so good with technical things. Let me find it first. So can you see this, everyone? Great. So he was 96 here. And if you are good at seeing body language, can you see the incredible mindfulness with which he is lighting the candle? Can you see that? The incredible attentiveness or attention. He's completely present. So I want to tell you the story of when I met him for the first time. A friend of mine had told me about him, and I went to Chiang Mai in northern Thailand, together with this friend and another friend. And I'm actually quite skeptical. You know, most of you think I am this, you know, this sort of superstitious who believes everything. Not at all. I'm extremely critical, actually, extremely skeptical. And I went there, and we went to this beautiful monastery. It's a little bit further away from the Chiang Mai airport. And then they have these beautiful, what they call stupas. Stupa is like, for those of you who know what a Sri Chakra is, it is like a golden Sri Chakra, but huge, they're huge. And India is full of the stupas of ancient Buddhist monasteries, but they did them with stone at that time. But these stupas in Thailand nowadays, they're built from copper and brass, and then they're covered in gold. It's beautiful to see. It looks like a Sri Chakra, really, for those of you who know what a Sri Chakra is. So we first went to the stupa at this monastery, and then we went to the reception, and then they gave us this beautiful little kuti. A kuti is like a room where you can meditate and where you can sleep, and it's very simple, very humble. And the bed was this thin. It was, and you know, I'm quite, I wouldn't say fat, but you know, I would say enlarged. So I saw this bed and I thought, what, I'm supposed to sleep here for a month? That's crazy. And the mat was, you know, like this. So if you could call it, it wasn't even a mat. It was just a blanket or something. And supposed to sleep here. And okay, so I got myself settled down and did some meditation. And then we had met a nun who said that she can translate for us and that we can meet him personally, but it didn't work out at the start because he has had a lot of visitors. And then the Buddha day came, I think on the next day. The Buddha day today is actually the Buddha day, because today is the full moon. And today is the Sharat Purnima, the full moon of the autumn, which is the most beautiful full moon and the most important full moon. So then the Buddha day came, which was the full moon, which was the next day. And we heard that the monks were chanting near the stupa. And I'll remember this always, because we came around the corner. And you know, I'm quite sensitive because I'm a meditator. I've meditated for a long time in my life, from the age of 14 or 13, 14. I'm quite sensitive. I really feel things. So we came around the corner and I suddenly felt as if there was a field of, I wouldn't call it energy. I don't like this word energy really, but it was suddenly like there was a field, there was something there suddenly. And I felt something, there was a, it's difficult to describe. It is like, when a powerful speaker, I don't know if you've been to a concert, and there's a powerful speaker and that speaker is suddenly put on, you feel that there's something like a vibration coming at you. I felt there was something. And then I said to my friend, oh, I really felt there's something is different now. We came around the corner and there he was, the 93-year-old that time, Ajahn Tong, sitting in absolute samadhi. Those of you have never seen samadhi. This was something, oh my goodness. He was sitting there. He was looking like a corpse. It was like he was dead. And you can read this in the ancient texts or about the great masters like Ramakrishna. Those of you who know these stories, it looked like he was dead. But he was sitting and it was like he was dead. And it was completely white, like the body had died, but he was there. And there was an incredible energy flowing from him. I'm using the word energy, it was like vibrating from him. And I thought, wow, this is incredible. How is this possible? You know, in the 21st century, someone has still managed to do it. It's not so easy to attain that, okay? It's really something. And instantly I knew, okay, you know, my critical mind was instantly thought, oh my goodness, wow. So that was the first time I saw him. And then, but this was not a private meeting. This was, you know, just together with others. And then, of course, we had requested the private audience. And that took a couple of days, I think 3-4 days. And this was again interesting. In the evening, no, sorry, at night, before we met him, and the nun kept telling us, yes, yes, you'll meet him, and I'll try to arrange it. But she kept delaying it. And then at night, I dreamt, I've told this story to some of you, I dreamt of this Ajahn Tong, this master, appearing in my dream, telling me, I will meet you tomorrow. And of course you could say, well, you know, I was obsessing about meeting him, and that's therefore sort of my mind created this dream. But now something very interesting detail. In my dream, I saw 2 plates, and they were sort of this color. This color. You remember they have these plates there. And I didn't know this, that in Buddhist culture, Northern Thai Buddhist culture, you present the fruits to the master on a plate. I didn't know this, really, I didn't know this. And in my dream, I saw these 2 plates. And this is strange. And I told my 2 friends about the dream in the morning. No, sorry, that's not true. No. I didn't tell them about the dream. I told them later. I like to be very precise. In the morning at 7 o'clock, the nun contacts me saying, please get ready. He will meet you now. Incredible. So I saw it in the dream. And then she says, please go and buy fruits. At the entrance to the monastery, you can buy fruits and come at 8 o'clock, come to the area where he receives people. And then in front of that area, his seat, before he came, there were these 2 plates. And I thought, no, how is this? And I always write down my dreams. You see, I make it a point, even if it's just 2 short sentences or something, I write them down, you know, in order to remain objective, so that we don't sort of imagine later, yeah, oh, I had this dream and all that. You know, then you can be objective. And little request to all of you, please do the same. Start making little notes about your dreams, then your dreams become more lucid and more clear. Now, in any case, we put all the fruits on these 2 plates and then we waited there. And it's quite strenuous to wait in Thailand because they don't allow you to sit, you know, cross-legged like we sit in India, because that's considered inappropriate. So you have to put your legs to the side. And those of you who have been to northern Thailand, to a sacred place, you know this. It actually begins to be quite painful. Initially you think, oh, that's nothing. But then because you haven't sat like that before, it's like, oh my goodness, I need to sit like this for an hour? No. After 10, 15 minutes, you start, oh, you know, you want to put your legs in the front and then you want to move around. And so we were sitting there waiting, and he was supposed to come at 8 o'clock, but then he didn't show up. And they said, yeah, he'll come. And you know, Thailand is a little bit like India. Time is very flexible. You know, it can be 10 minutes or an hour, no problem, right? It's quite the same as in India. So we were waiting. And I swear to you, 30 seconds before he emerged from that door, I felt that same, this wave, it was like a wave. I again felt it, and I turned to my friend and I told him, oh, I think he's coming. And then 30 seconds later, the door opens and he comes out. So this is the power of vipassana, the power of the Buddha's practice. that somebody who has really gone into the supreme stages of samadhi has that effect on people. So it was from him that I learned the Buddha's way of practicing. So as we go through the Dharmapada, I will share that particular technique with you. It is not the only technique of awareness. There are many techniques that have emerged from the ancient Indian soil. It is one of them. It is very precious. All right? So now I'll go through the next verse before we go to question answers, because I've done a lot of talking today, but it's important that you know where I received it from. Yes? Now this is in the second chapter. Appamado amatapadam, pamado machuno padam, appamatta namiyanti ye pamatta yatha mata. To be free from heedlessness. Heedlessness means negligence. It means the lack of mindfulness. To be free from that means to be mindful is to be immortal. To be mindful means to be immortal. Whereas mindlessness or negligence is a state of death already. Those who are free from heedlessness, those who are free from mindlessness, never die. Whereas those who are negligent, those who are mindless, are already like the dead. When we are heedless, the mind lives and experiences reality only through the states of wanting, not seeing things as they are, selfishness, self-centeredness. Waking up in the morning, the mind is moody and remains moody the whole day, not realizing that in fact it is a beautiful day. If you saw things as they are, you see? In fact, can I tell you this? Most days are beautiful. If you know how to look at things as they are, most days are beautiful. It is your mind, it is the prism of your emotions that makes the day look bad. So if you learn to look at things as they are, you will enjoy your day. Thus, negligence, the lack of awareness, and the inability to ride the wave of desire and the descent into aversion, the inability to experience things with awareness leads to a death-like state. Why death-like? Because one is going through the state like one is hypnotized, almost like a corpse. The corpse isn't really experiencing itself. It's not really experiencing its life anymore. Similarly, when we are not aware of what our mind is going through, the endless states of desire, not wanting, and all that, we are so dull, really, that it's almost like we are dead already. And why is one who always cultivates awareness and mindfulness already immortal? Because such a practitioner, at the moment when the body dies, does not die unconsciously, really. And I'll just finish with the story of my first guru, my first teacher, who lived in Badrinath in the mountains of the Himalayas, and who always said, I will die consciously. And we always thought, yeah, we will see about that, because most people die in a hospital these days, isn't it? And his legs were in the lotus posture, and he died consciously. as he had said all those years. So it is really possible to do that. And I wish that all of you become conscious of the importance of dying consciously, not losing awareness. So Ajahn Tong gave the instruction that when the moment of death approaches, when the body is shutting down, when the experiences become unbearable, become aware of the aversion. Stay clear and understand now the body is dying. And when the last breath comes, be aware of the fear, fully conscious of what is occurring, and know now the body is dying. And completely relax. That is the fruit of awareness. Do you see the difference between how most people die and how a practitioner of awareness dies? It makes all the difference. If you spend your life fully aware of everything, rather than just going through it, unaware, you will also go through death aware. That is the promise here. And you will manage if you practice. So now let's have some questions. Please feel free to ask whatever occurs to you. Someone has written sensations question. It is a very short question, but I will try to imagine what the questioner seeks to question. Probably, do we also direct awareness towards sensations? Yes, towards anything. The practice of awareness is like riding in a train, and there is a window, and that window is consciousness. That window is what we experience. And outside, there are trees, there are flowers, there are grass, there's grass, there are cows, there are birds flying, and whatever you can spot, you note. Whatever you can spot, you become aware. So you become aware of that. That is really the practice of awareness. So in this case, you have the window on your own sensations, on your waves of desire, the waves of aversion. The whole spectrum is right there for you to be aware of. And it is really the way to become free, simply to be aware of them. Then someone asks, what happens to awareness in your sleep? Very important question. As part of our ancient Dharma practices, there is also a way to fall asleep consciously, more consciously. That doesn't mean you always have to be fully aware in the dream state, but there really are ways to fall asleep more consciously. And one day I would like to share them with you. Is very precious. These ancient masters were so skillful, they were so clever, they thought of everything. So there are ways to enter the deep sleep and the dream sleep state more consciously, and to then reap the fruit of awareness throughout. Someone asks, is birth similar when consciousness enters? Yes, one could indeed say that. It is quite similar. Only, of course, the brain of a small baby is not fully developed yet. Therefore, consciousness cannot express itself fully. But great meditation masters have, such as Yogananda and others, have stated that they were aware in the womb. Hard to believe, but great masters have said this. Then someone says, once you become aware of a wave of any of the kleshas, what should one then do? you remain aware. This is the beauty of it. You do not react to the wave with a sense of, I don't want this. This is the mistake. This is what most people misunderstand. Most people think that we are the Catholic Church here. You see, that we are saying, bad boy, you have desire, or bad girl, you have envy, or that I would say to the Brasundari, bad wife, you want to buy some statue or some, right? This is what most people think, but this is not the teaching. This is so important for you to understand. The teaching is not when the wave of desire comes that you turn into a Catholic cardinal, who is beating yourself with a whip or something. So that's not the teaching here. Yeah. If there are any Catholics, I'm so sorry. I'm just making fun of it. Please don't mind. It's also a wonderful tradition. I'm just joking about it because you see, there is a tendency. The church has, sort of created this teaching of, I'm a bad boy, the 7 cardinal sins and all that. Those of you who have studied comparative religion, you know this. But this is not the teaching of the Buddha. The teaching of the Buddha is to be aware of this wave of desire that comes and the wave of aversion when it comes, or rather the descent of the wave, is to be aware of it. Do you understand this? Not to judge yourself for it. That would be the most terrible misunderstanding. Oh, I'm such a bad boy. Or telling yourself that all the time is terrible, okay? So when the wave comes, you can be fully aware of it, and it increases the experience of life. Just this morning when I woke up, I woke up really early, too early, something like 3:50 or so. And then I remembered my guru. I always remember my teachers, all my teachers, right in the morning. This is part of our tradition, is to imagine all your teachers above you right in the morning. And then I thought, this is so beautiful. If only everyone could see this. How beautiful the experience of life is when you are aware of it. This is the sahaja awareness that Bapu Shri talks about. Bapu Shri is a great master living in Gujarat in India. If any of you ever, if this Corona Yuga ends one day, if ever you can go there, it's very precious to see. He's also quite elderly now, so it's very precious to see. And of course, the way he teaches is a little different. I'm using a modern language. He uses a more traditional language, but very precious to see. He calls this the sahaja awareness, the natural awareness, the natural, just to be with yourself naturally and to go through all your experience with that natural awareness. It's exactly the same thing we're talking about, just a different vocabulary. Very precious to see. So this morning I was thinking, if only everyone could see how beautiful this life is when you are aware of it, rather than when you are caught in your states. Please understand this. The states can catch you and then you are their prisoner, or the states can arise in you like a wave and you can be aware of them and it can cease again. Does self-awareness, does it mean self-awareness is the means to achieve moksha? Absolutely. That's the Buddha's teaching. Self-awareness is the way. Awareness is the way. Not only self-awareness, simply awareness. Awareness of everything. Awareness of experiences outside, awareness of experiences inside, awareness of states of desire and wanting, awareness of states of aversion, not wanting. Just awareness, 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 or mindful, mindful, mindful. always mindful. This is called sati in the Buddhist language. That is the way to achieve liberation. That is the Buddha's promise, that if you do it all the time, all the time, all the time, you will never get into a negative state. Afterlife and also in this life, if you really do it, because you will always know the states and you will instantly experience them as a new wave. Even, I really want to tell you this, even negative states, really, even tremendously negative states just become another way to experience awareness deeper. It's something surprising. So please do it. One more person says, thank you very much. Is it similar to detachment and paying attention to each moment? Yes, paying attention to each moment of our life. That is the teaching here. The word detachment, you have to be a little careful, because the word detachment can be misunderstood, that you are detaching yourself. But that's not the point here. Detachment is not aversion. You have to be very careful. You know, words matter. For instance, if I detached myself from Tripura Sundari, how would you feel? I'm detaching myself from her. Do you see? That's not the teaching here. So you have to be careful there. The teaching is to ride all your experiences with awareness. That awareness becomes like your vehicle with which you ride the waves of desire and the rising of those waves and the descent of those waves into some dislike. Is it somehow clear? Is the teaching of the Buddha clear? Then someone says, is it the will we use to control the monkey mind? Yes, but it's not about control here. You don't have to, you see, control has this sense of, there's some tension when you try to control, isn't it? Do I control you? You see, imagine I'm controlling Tripura Sundari. There's something wrong about the word control. It is not about control. It is about being aware. It makes all the difference. And I know some of you can't hear this word anymore. I'm also starting to get, sort of worried about the word awareness. We need to find a new word. Yes, because otherwise we will get bored of it. But it is really the essence here. This paying attention, what the previous lady said, paying attention to every moment, totally paying attention, full attention. That's the teaching here. Please understand how beautiful everything becomes when you understand this. It becomes different. You are no longer the victim of your states. Okay? Makes all the difference. You will have the same pain maybe in your knee or in your back. You will have the same little issues with people, but because you are aware, because you are attentive, it will be different. And the Buddha's teaching will flower in your heart, and you will begin to experience the taste of what he calls Mahasukha, the great bliss, the great joy of equanimity, of not being pushed back and forth by the rising and the falling of like and dislike, desire, aversion. We will speak more about the third one, confusion, the next time. It's also important to slowly recognize that, but it is easier to start with the desire and aversion waves. Thank you so much for participating. It is so precious that the teachings of the Buddha continue to be implemented, and that people continue to see their preciousness. Even in the 21st century, especially in times like these, there is nothing more important. I wish you a wonderful weekend. Experience the joy, the taste of the great bliss or serenity of equanimity. The day is beautiful. Wherever you are, see that you carry in your heart the light of awareness, the light of knowledge, the light of harmony, the light of joy. Don't run away from yourself. Be happy and be kind to all others. See you next time.